Sushruta for NEET is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
So in today's class, we shall start to look into the pregnancy and embryonic development. We have studied certain aspect of this in our previous classes. As you are aware, after the attachment of the blastocyst onto the wall of the uterus, that is the endometrial wall, finger-like projections appear on the outermost layer of the blastocyst called trophoblast. And these finger-like projections are called chorionic villi. The chorionic villi are always found surrounded by the uterine tissue and the maternal blood. That means the chorionic villi is actually dipped. It is actually dipped in the uterine tissue. It is dipped in the maternal blood. That means the chorionic villi and uterine tissue become interdigitated with each other. They become interdigitated with each other and jointly form a structural and functional unit. Jointly form a structural and functional unit, and this structural and functional unit formed by the interdigitation of the chorionic villi from the fetal side and uterine tissue is known as the placenta. If the question is asked, what is placenta? Define placenta. You have to write placenta is a structural and functional unit formed by chorionic villi and the uterine tissue between the developing embryo, that is the fetus, and maternal body. This is what the definition with regard to the placenta. Placenta is a structural and functional unit present between the fetus and the maternal tissue, and it is formed of the chorionic villi of the fetus and that of the uterine tissue of the mother. The placenta is mainly concerned with supplying oxygen from the mother to the fetal tissue, taking away carbon dioxide from the fetus and moving it towards the maternal tissue, supplying nutrients to the fetus, and carrying away the excrete material or waste material produced by the embryo. Therefore, the placenta is concerned with doing four functions. One, supplying of oxygen to the fetus. Two, removal of carbon dioxide from the fetus. Three, supplying nutrients to the fetus. Four, removing the excrete material or waste material produced by the fetus or embryo. This is what we have studied. This is the fetus or embryo. We use the term embryo for the first 10 weeks of development. Generally, the term embryo is used. After that, we call it a fetus. The embryo or the fetus is surrounded by a fluid called amniotic fluid. Outer to the amniotic fluid, you have what is called amnion. This is a amniotic fluid. So, fetus always swims in the amniotic fluid. Outer to the amniotic fluid, you have what is known as amnion. Outer to the amnion, you have chorion. This is chorion. Chorion is mainly concerned with the respiration. Chorion, it forms a chorioniculi. These chorioniculi are also called placental villi. Chorioniculi, also called placental villi. Chorioniculi, along with the maternal tissue, it forms a placenta. It forms a placenta. We also come across another structure called umbilical cord. Umbilical cord contains inside arteries and veins. Arteries and veins. And this umbilical cord is a part, umbilical cord has a part inside which is called allantois, which is mainly allantois, which is mainly concerned with the removal of the excreted matter that is passed through the veins carrying blood away from the fetus. And we have degenerated yolk sac. This is what you have the structure of human fetus within the uterus. The placenta is connected to the embryo through an umbilical cord which helps in the transport of substances to and from the embryo. Transport of substances which include transport of oxygen, transport of nutrients through the arteries, and taking away of carbon dioxide, taking away of the nitrogenous excreted material which takes place through the veins. So, umbilical cord, as I mentioned, it is mainly made up of the arteries and veins. Arteries provide oxygen, provide nutrients, and veins take away carbon dioxide and take away that of the excreted matter. Placenta also acts, very, very important point. Placenta also acts as an endocrine gland, endocrine tissue, and produces several hormones like human chorionic gonadotropin, always abbreviated as HCG. Human chorionic gonadotropin also produces human placental lactogen, which is responsible for the release of the milk, human placental lactogen, and also we come across estrogens, progestogens, etc., etc. And all these are produced by the placenta. Always ask a question, which are all the hormones produced by the placenta. In the later phase of pregnancy, a hormone called relaxin is also secreted by the ovary. Relaxin is also produced by the ovary. A question was asked on this particular aspect in the recently concluded NEET exam. Hormone called relaxin is also secreted by the ovary in the later phase of pregnancy. You also remember that HCG, HPL, and relaxin are produced in the women only during pregnancy. That means the secretion of this is always concerned with the pregnancy. So, we must be very much familiar with these hormones. In addition, during pregnancy, the levels of other hormones like estrogens, progestogens, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine, all these are increased several folds. You see, these hormones to be produced in abundance in the maternal blood. Why these hormones, estrogen, progestogen, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine, are produced or production is increased by several folds? The reason is that this increased production of these hormones is essential for one, supporting the fetal growth, two, because of the metabolic changes in the mother, and three, maintenance of pregnancy. Because of these three reasons, on one hand, there should be growth of the fetus. On the other hand, there will be lot of metabolic changes in the mother. And on the third hand, there is a requirement of a maintenance of a pregnancy. Because of these three reasons, there is a many-fold increase in the production of the hormones like estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine hormones. So these are the very important part during the late phase of the pregnancy. So you have seen many hormones to get produced. Look here, placenta is responsible for the production of HCG, HPL, relaxin. Along with that, it is also now at the later phase of pregnancy, we also see many more hormones other than what are produced by this placenta. So this is with regard to the pregnancy and during embryonic development, what changes take place in the mother. At the same time, we come across another change to occur. Immediately after implantation, implantation is the attachment of the blastocyst onto the endometrial lining of the uterus. Immediately after implantation, the inner cell mass, what is called embryoblast, the inner cell mass, embryoblast, differentiates into an outer layer called ectoderm and an inner layer called endoderm. Soon, one more layer appears called mesoderm between the ectoderm and endoderm. These three layers, ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm, these three layers are together called embryonic germ layers. These are called germ layers, embryonic germ layers. And these appear during the development of the embryo. And these embryonic germ layers include three, that is ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. These three layers give rise to all tissues or organs in adult. You must know that in the human adult, there are nearly 200 trillion cells. 200 trillion cells are there in the human body. After 200, you have to write 12 zeros. 200 trillion cells are there in human body. And all these cells ultimately give rise to tissues. And these tissues will join to form organs. And organs will join to form organ system. And it is very much necessary to know what ectoderm forms, what layers or what different organs endoderm forms, and what are the structures formed by the mesoderm. And we are going to study now. It needs to be mentioned here that the inner cell mass, that is embryoblast, contain certain cells called stem cells. And these stem cells have the potency to give rise to all the tissues and organs. So, during development, you come across some cells to get differentiated. And these cells are called stem cells. If you preserve these stem cells of the embryo, in case any organs get damaged later, you can culture these stem cells and replace that damaged cells with these stem cells. That is why nowadays in advanced countries, whenever a woman is admitted for parturition, admitted for the delivery, her stem cells from the embryo are taken out and they are preserved and they are kept in the hospital where the baby is born. In due course of time, when the baby is growing outside world, if the baby, when it grows into adult, suppose that the adult human being meets with any accident or needs some tissues of the body to be replaced, these stem cells which are there in the laboratory can be cultured and these cells can be easily put in the place where the cells are needed, healthy cells are needed, and it is a boon on the part of the human being nowadays. So this is very much in practice in all the advanced countries, and also in some of the hospitals in India, they have started to have this stem cells culture in certain hospitals Of course, one has to bear certain expenditure on incurred on this part. So, this stem cells culture has enabled to treat, there is a diabetes called type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes. These stem cells are used for treating the people who are suffering from type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is known as juvenile diabetes. Juvenile diabetes. And in this type 1 diabetes, juvenile diabetes, the insulin is not at all produced by the islets of Langerhans. So, because right from the beginning, this particular juvenile diabetes is seen in the people of your age, in the young age, where the islets of Langerhans totally failed to produce this insulin at that time. If these islets of Langerhans are replaced by the stem cells of that particular individual, which are grown in the or cultured in the lab, they can be replaced, they can be substituted for the islets of Langerhans which are not functioning. And the advantage is that whenever these stem cells of the same person which are grown in the hospital, they are placed inside the body, there will not be any rejection of the tissue. There is no rejection by the immune system. So this is the advantage of that. So in this way, the stem cells culture has become a great help to some of the people who are facing certain problems in their lifetime, right? So now we have to look into what are the derivatives of ectoderm, what are the derivatives of endoderm, and what are the derivatives of mesoderm. Now let us look into that. I request you to have the screenshot of this. And you must know which are all derivatives of ectoderm, which are all derivatives of mesoderm, which are all derivatives of endoderm. This we are going to study in today's class itself, and we have to memorize. Please listen to me. How to recall, how to memorize this very easily? There are ways. First, you should know what all derivatives of ectoderm. Ectodermal derivatives are the structures which you see almost on the outer side of the body. Whatever that is present on the outer side of the body, they are all ectodermal derivatives. Whatever that are present deep inside the body, they are endodermal derivatives. Whatever that is present in between, they are the mesodermal derivatives. Okay? Please listen to this very carefully. I am going to put the question in between. What are the ectodermal derivatives? Epidermis of the skin, epidermis of the skin, epidermis, outermost, epidermis of the skin and its derivatives. That means sweat glands, hair follicles, etc. You have profuse hairs on the outside. All these are ectodermal derivatives. Epidermis of the skin and its derivatives. All the glands that are present. Even the nails, antlers, whatever you come across, claws, all these exoskeletal structures, they are the ectodermal derivatives. Epithelial lining of the mouth and anus. When you open your mouth, you get the lining, epithelial lining. This is also derivative of ectoderm. Go down, around the anus, whatever lining you have, they are all outermost. That is also ectodermal derivative. Cornea, whatever you have, the outermost layer of the eye, cornea, exposed part, is the ectodermal derivative. Lens of the eye is the ectodermal derivative. Entire nervous system, if at all you just cut off on the skull, hit the skull, you will get your brain exposed. Entire nervous system, brain and spinal cord, inside the vertebral column, that is ectodermal derivative. Sensory receptors, whatever you have receptors in the skin, epidermis, sensory receptors, these are all ectodermal derivatives. Then this point you have to remember adrenal medulla, which is a little bit inside. It is ectodermal derivative. Enamel, white part of the tooth, ectodermal derivative. Epithelium of pineal gland and pituitary gland. These are the glands found associated with the brain. That is also ectodermal derivative. Remember, all these are present on the outer surface of the body. As I told you, epidermis of the skin and its derivatives, whatever that are present, hair follicles, etc., etc., etc. Your nail, hoof, whatever you come across in mammals. Hoof, of course, you come across in cattle. In you come across a nail. It is ectodermal derivative. Hair is ectodermal derivative. Lining of the mouth is ectodermal derivative. Lining of the anus is ectodermal derivative. Enamel of the teeth is ectodermal derivative. Cornea is ectodermal derivative. Lens is ectodermal derivative. You have sensory receptors, whatever you have in the nose, eyes, skin, etc. All these are the ectodermal derivatives. Adrenal medulla is ectodermal derivative. The pineal gland and pituitary gland, these are the ectodermal derivatives. Okay. Now let us go to deep inside the body. We have already seen the mouth lined by ectodermal derivative. Cut it, throw it. Anus, anal cavity lined by ectodermal derivative. Whatever remaining, right from the pharynx up to the large intestine, whatever you have, the entire epithelial lining of the digestive tract is endodermal derivative. Remember, right from pharynx up to the large intestine, it is a endodermal derivative. Endodermal derivative. Then, you must know, if at all this esophagus, from the esophagus, our lungs arise. Respiratory system arises as an outgrowth of the esophagus. So, entire respiratory system is endodermal derivative. It is derived from the endoderm, epithelial lining of the respiratory system, say respiratory system. Lining of urethra, duct, urinary bladder, and respiratory system, all these are endodermal derivative. Glands associated with the alimentary canal, liver, pancreas, endodermal derivative. And we already seen a pineal gland and pituitary gland. These are ectodermal derivative. Now let us come to the remaining, the endocrine glands, thymus, thyroid, parathyroid. All these are endodermal derivative. So I repeat, epithelial lining of the digestive tract, except the buccal cavity and anal cavity, epithelial lining of the respiratory system, lining of the reproductive and excretory system, liver, pancreas, thymus, thyroid, parathyroid glands, all these are endodermal derivatives. So, whatever you have not heard now so far, we have seen what are ectodermal derivatives, what are endodermal derivatives, remaining structure, what are the present in between. What is that? You have notochord, or you have studied that it is mesodermal derivative, entire skeletal system, whatever you have the bone inside, that is a mesodermal derivative, muscular system, cardiac, skeletal, or you have cardiac system muscles, skeletal muscles, smooth muscles. These are all mesodermal derivative. Muscular layer of stomach and intestine, muscles again, muscles, mesodermal derivative. Excretory system, ductus endodermal derivative. System, kidney, it is mesodermal derivative. Heart and this circulatory and lymphatic system, mesodermal derivative. Gonads, testis and ovary, mesodermal derivative. Reproductive system, dermis of the skin, mesodermal derivative. Lining of the body cavity, it is the mesodermal derivative. Adrenal cortex is the mesodermal derivative. These, which are the ectodermal derivative, which are the mesodermal derivative, which are the endodermal derivative, is the very, very important concept for the examination, both the CET and the NEET. So, just remember, whatever is present in the middle portion, they are all mesodermally derived structures. So, ectodermal derived, endodermal derived, whatever you have inside your hand, except this epidermis, all other part, whatever you have, they are all endodermal, the mesodermal derivative. Heart is mesodermal derivative, kidney is mesodermal derivative, Gonad, testis and ovary, mesodermal derivative. Muscles are mesodermal derivative. Bone and cartilage, skeletal system, mesodermal derivative. All the three types of muscles, mesodermal derivative. I have already told you kidneys are mesodermal derivative. Dermis of the skin is mesodermal derivative. And inside, whatever you come across peritoneum, lining of the body cavity, that is also mesodermal derivative. And adrenal cortex is a mesodermal derivative. Is it clear? Understood? I shall give you the time, just about another 2-3 minutes, just to go through this. Have a screenshot of this. Now go through this, and you must tell about these derivatives in today's class itself. Shall we study? Shall we try? Come on. Would you please try? Come on. What do you say? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How much time you require?
Sir?
How much time you require? I want you to tell me now only.
Yes, sir. Ectoderm derivatives are epidermis of skin and the epithelial lining of mouth and anus, then cornea and lens of eyes, and then sensory receptors, adrenal medulla, and the tooth enamel, and nervous system, um, and
Glands associated with the nervous system, present on the brain, pineal and
pineal and pituitary glands.
pituitary. Okay, that's fine. So,
Uh,
tell me what are, okay, fine. Is there anyone in the ectodermal derivative?
No, sir, no, sir.
You have completed a lining of the buccal cavity and anal cavity?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you tell me, Rakesh, what are the endodermal derivatives?
Endodermal derivatives, sir.
Yeah.
Endodermal derivatives are pancreas, thymus, and then the liver, and then the lining of the respiratory system, and then urethra, and then the urinary bladder. That's all.
Lining of the entire alimentary canal except buccal cavity and anal cavity. Right?
Yes, sir.
These are all endodermal derivatives. Jyoti, coming back to mesodermal derivatives.
Sir, it's notochord, skeletal system, muscular layer of stomach and intestine, and then circulatory and lymphatic system, then excretory system, muscular system. Sir, is it a reproductive system?
System like gonads, testis and ovary.
And then adrenal cortex, lining of body cavity, and dermis of skin.
So these are all derivatives of mesoderm. So you must remember, you should not forget, you have to recall that whenever you get the time. So this is what is very important with regard to derivatives of the germ layers. All these are nothing but these are called derivatives of germ layers. What are the three germ layers? Ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. These are the three germ layers. And what you have? The table here, derivatives of the three germ layers. Derivatives of the three germ layers. Very often it is asked in all type of examination. Germ layers. So with this knowledge, we shall move to know what are the major features of embryonic development at various months of pregnancy. What you see, what are the important changes, major features of embryonic development? at various months of pregnancy. The human pregnancy lasts 9 months, or we say 280 days. Do you know for how many months pregnancy lasts in dogs, elephants, cats? In a cat, it is about 60 to 67 days, almost 2 months. In a dog, again, 63 days, 2 months. And in elephant, it is around 22 months. Longest gestation period for any mammal on this earth. So, generally you see, the dogs are sexually active during 2 times in a year. 63 days, nearly 2 months, it gets lost in pregnancy. Another 2 months they do just to show for taking care of their young ones. And another 2 months gap will be there. So twice in a year, they become sexually active. The same thing is about cat. And elephant is the longest gestation period, and with mammals, it is 22 months. In human beings, after 1 month of pregnancy, all these are very important. After 1 month of pregnancy, the embryo's heart is formed. Embryo's heart is formed after 1 month of pregnancy. The first sign of growing fetus may be noticed by listening to the heart sound carefully through the stethoscope. So whenever a woman doubts that she has become pregnant, the first indication is, what is the first indication of the woman becoming pregnant? Do you think?
In the heartbeat of the embryo.
No. I am asking, what is the indication of a woman to doubt that she has become pregnant? When a woman feels that she might have become pregnant, what is the indication of that? What is the first sign of that? In a normal woman, you come across a regular menstrual cycle. Am I right? If the menstruation does not occur, what is the indication generally in a married woman?
Means she's pregnant, sir.
That means she is pregnant. Whenever a woman does not get her normal period, a married woman, I'm telling, whenever she is not getting her normal period, she doubts that she might have become pregnant. What she will do? She will go to doctor. Doctor will examine her. And what the doctor examines, doctor signs to find out whether he could hear the heart sound of this fetus. In fact, on 18th day of the pregnancy, doctor can hear the heart sound by using the stethoscope. By the end of second month of pregnancy, the fetus develops limbs and digits. The fetus develops limbs and digits by the end of second month of pregnancy. Right? Now, by the end of 12 weeks, that means 3 months. By the end of 12 weeks, what we say, first trimester. You know, pregnancy is divided into 3 trimesters. 3 trimester. First trimester, there are 3 trimesters. First trimester ends with the first 3 months. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, first trimester. 4, 5, 6, second trimester. And 7, 8, 9 is the third trimester. So, by the end of 12 weeks, that means first trimester, most of the major organ system are formed. For example, the limbs and external genital organs are well developed. But even you cannot distinguish whether it's a male or female. Limbs and external genital organs are well developed by the end of 12 weeks. The first movement of the fetus and the appearance of a hair on the head are usually observed during the 5th month. During the 5th month of pregnancy, first movement of the fetus, mother will feel, yes, my fetus is moving here, my fetus is here, it has come up here, gone down here. Mother will feel the movement of the fetus. This is observed during the 5th month of pregnancy, and also at that time, a coat of hair develops on the head. Appearance of hair is found on the head, and this takes place during the 5th month of pregnancy. By the end of 24 weeks, that means second trimester. 12 weeks means end of first trimester. 24 weeks, second trimester. The body is covered with the fine hair. We call it a lanugo. Lanugo. Eyelids are separate. Until now, the fetus was with the closed eyelids. It never opened its eyelids. Its eyelids are separate. Its eyelids open. Eyelids are separate. Eyes open. And eyelashes are formed by the end of 24 weeks of pregnancy. By the end of 9 months of pregnancy, that is the third trimester, the fetus is fully developed and is ready for delivery. Right? All these events, step by step, all these events you must remember. It is asked what gets formed during the first trimester, what gets formed during second trimester, and what is formed during the 5th month, what gets formed during the 12 weeks or 24 weeks. All these are asked in examination. You must remember what structures they get formed at what week of pregnancy. Always pregnancy is measured in terms of weeks. 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 24 weeks, like that. Right? So this is another important point that you have to know. Now let us look into parturition and lactation.
Sir, 1 second, sir.
Yeah. What?
What is that word, sir? Linex, fine hair.
Pardon?
Fine hair is called as
Lanugo. Lanugo. In my next classes, I am going to give additional information on this. Additional information which are not mentioned in the NCERT book, but important from the view of the NEET exam. I am going to give you additional information. At that time, I shall show you some more slides pertaining to this. And at the same time, you must get prepared for answering NEET-based questions, whatever the study material you have with you. And I requested you to message me, and it has not been done. By whom? So let me give you, if at all you want, let me send that PDFs again, and you must get prepared for that. So, this is Lanugo, Lanugo, right? Now let us look into parturition and lactation. The average duration of human pregnancy is about 9 months, which is called gestation period. 9 months, as I said, it is approximately 280 days. 9 months means it becomes 270, but add 10 more days to this. Various contractions of the uterus at the end of pregnancy causes expulsion or delivery of the fetus. Vigorous contraction. Vigorous contraction of the uterus. Which muscle? Which layer? It is the middle layer. What is it called?
mesoderm.
Mesoderm.
What mesoderm? Middle layer of the uterus.
So mesodermal layer.
Middle layer of the uterus. Uterus has 3 linings. Endometrium.
Myometrium, sir. Sorry.
Myometrium. Vigorous contraction of the uterus. Myometrial lining. Muscles present in the myometrium. Vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of the pregnancy causes expulsion or delivery of the fetus. This process of a delivery of a fetus is called childbirth is also called parturition. The process of a delivery of the fetus is called childbirth. It is also called parturition, or simply it is called a delivery. The parturition is induced by a complex neuroendocrine mechanism, very, very important mechanism. What is that? The signals for parturition originate from the fully developed fetus and the placenta. Remember, the signals for parturition or birth process or childbirth originate from the fully developed fetus and the placenta, which induce mild uterine contractions called fetal ejection reflex. Always ask a question. What is fetal ejection reflex? Ejection of the fetus. For the ejection of the fetus, reflex action. It originates from the fully developed fetus and the placenta. So, signals for parturition coming from the fully developed fetus and placenta is known as, which induces mild contraction of the uterus, and this is known as fetal ejection reflex. This triggers release of an important hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is also called by another name, that is the birth hormone. It is called birth hormone. So, this triggers the release of oxytocin from the maternal pituitary. Once it's a fully developed fetus and the fetus, it presses this uterine cervical region. When the fetal head presses this cervical region of the uterus, now the signal passes from there to the brain. When this signal passes to the brain, the signals for parturition originate from the fully developed fetus, just prior to delivery. The fetus, it turns by 180 degree, bringing the head of the fetus, which was up, down towards the cervical region. It rotates by 180 degree. And this head of the fetus, it touches now the cervical region. We call it head fixing stage. Once this head gets fixed near the cervical region, the head presses this cervical region, the signal is carried to the pituitary. There, the hormone oxytocin, birth hormone, which is produced by birth hormone, which is secreted by the hypothalamus, but stored in the posterior pituitary, pars nervosa, it gets released into the blood. From there, it comes to the uterus region and makes this uterine wall to contract. This contraction again stimulates and makes the pituitary to release further oxytocin. Again, this contraction takes place, thereby pushing the head of the baby little by little outside the cervical region, and this is what is generally happening during normal delivery. So, this is the fetal ejection reflex. That is the contraction of the uterus. It triggers the release of oxytocin from the maternal pituitary, and this oxytocin release, it gets more and more, the head of the baby, head of the fetus presses the cervical region. So always you must know that this childbirth or parturition is an example for positive feedback mechanism. Positive feedback mechanism. Just remember that. Positive feedback mechanism. Whenever there is more and more pressing of the cervical region, more and more oxytocin gets released from the pituitary. This is what positive feedback mechanism. So there are two examples for positive feedback mechanism. One is that of the birth process, and another one is that of the coagulation of the blood clotting, coagulation of the blood coagulation. These two are the examples for positive feedback mechanism. And whenever the blood sugar level increases soon after our meal, when the blood sugar level increases, the islets of Langerhans produce insulin hormone. The moment insulin hormone is produced, the blood sugar level comes down. And that is an example for negative feedback mechanism. There are two types of feedback mechanism. One is a positive feedback mechanism and is a negative feedback mechanism. Negative feedback mechanism, best example is the secretion of the insulin when there is a raise in the blood sugar level, and the moment the insulin is secreted, the blood sugar level comes down. That is what is known as a negative feedback mechanism. Right? So you have two types of feedback mechanism. Just remember this. Oxytocin, whatever is produced, acts on the
So
uterine
1
muscle.
minute.
Yeah.
Can you go to the previous slide?
So when there is a raise in the sugar level in the blood, there will be secretion of the insulin. When the insulin is secreted, blood sugar level comes down. That is an example for negative feedback mechanism. When one raises, the other one comes down. And this is not only that. When you come across the head fixes the cervical region, this sends the signal. It stimulates the brain to release this hormone. When hormone comes, the contraction won't stop further. It won't stop. It increases further. So that is what positive feedback mechanism. Shall we go ahead?
So for positive, it is blood coagulation and
Blood coagulation is one, and this parturition, childbirth,
okay, sir.
is the second one. Okay, clear? Right. Now let us take up. Oxytocin acts on the uterine muscle and causes a stronger uterine contraction. As I said, more the oxytocin is produced, more is the uterine contraction, which in turn stimulates further secretion of oxytocin. When oxytocin is released, uterine muscles contract. When uterine muscles contract, further secretion of oxytocin. So this is what is known as example for positive feedback mechanism. The stimulator reflex between the uterine contraction and oxytocin secretion continues, resulting in a stronger and stronger contraction. I hope you understood.
Yes, sir.
This leads to expulsion of the baby out of the uterus through birth canal, that is parturition. You have already seen the cervical canal, the cervical region thus has the small canal there, cervical canal plus vaginal canal together form birth canal. Together form birth canal. So this leads to expulsion of baby out of the uterus through birth canal, and this process is called parturition. Soon after the infant is delivered, the placenta is also expelled out of the uterus. This expelled placenta is a connection between the fetus and the maternal tissue. Once the baby comes out, once the infant is delivered, the placenta is also expelled out of the uterus. And this part, this placenta, which is expelled out of the uterus, is called by a term what is called afterbirth. It is called by a term known as afterbirth. 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 You might have seen whenever the cattle gives birth to calf, from the rear end of the cattle, suppose you see the cattle, from the rear end of the cattle, you see a small, from the rear end of the cattle, you see a small sac-like structure to come out. Fluid fed, sac-like structure to be there. Have you seen it any time? If at all you are in the village side, you might have seen that. And this is what is called afterbirth. It is excluded or expelled placenta after the birth of the baby. No. What do you think the doctors inject to induce the delivery? Suppose the normal delivery is not there. A woman is not getting normal delivery. She is struggling. And at that time, to induce the delivery, doctors inject this oxytocin. They give the oxytocin injection near the uterus. Near the uterus, they induce this oxytocin. And that is said to be most painful, right? That injection. The mammary glands of the female undergo differentiation during pregnancy. You know, whenever a woman is become pregnant, with advancement in the pregnancy, her breast also starts increasing in size. Her breast also becoming bigger and bigger. The mammary glands of female undergo differentiation during pregnancy and starts producing milk towards the end of pregnancy. Towards the end of the pregnancy by the process called lactation. Starts producing milk towards the end of the pregnancy by the process called lactation. Lactation means milk yielding, milk releasing time. It is after the birth of the baby, whatever the period that you refer to with reference to woman, it is called a lactation period. Lactation period is the period of feeding of the baby by the milk produced by the mother. This helps the mother in feeding the newborn. Lactation means release of milk. So the mammary glands start producing the milk towards the end of the pregnancy by the process called lactation. The milk produced during the initial few days of lactation, that means soon after the birth of the baby, is called colostrum. And you know, the colostrum, the milk producer, immediately after the delivery or after the birth of the child or baby, is called colostrum. And you might have seen this colostrum, the milk, is somewhat yellowish in color in case of cattle. If you look there, soon after the cattle has given birth to the calf, if at all you take out the or udder, take out the milk from the udder of the cow, it will be yellowish in color, which contains several antibodies. This colostrum, it is the milk produced during the initial few days of lactation. This colostrum, this milk, which is yellowish in color, contains several antibodies, absolutely essential for developing resistance power in the newborn. Therefore, this milk has a very, very high value because it has several antibodies which enable the baby to have good resistance power. Breastfeeding during the initial period of infant growth is recommended by doctor for bringing up a healthy baby. Remember, breastfeeding is the best feeding. Is the best feeding for the babies. As long as possible, a mother should feed the baby with her own breast milk as much as possible. Going to this artificial food, artificial milk is not good. One should always get mother's milk at the initial stages of development of the baby. Unfortunately, I am sorry to tell, some of the mothers, they are bothered about their own beauty rather than caring about their baby. Many of the mothers feel that by feeding the baby with the breast milk, their breast gets D-shaped. They are unfit to be called mothers. They are unfit to be called mothers. It is also there. I am not telling that all women are like that, but there are many women nowadays thinking in that line also. I hope you may be knowing some of these athletes nowadays, they always go for this milk produced in the lactating mother. And there are many lactating mother also. They sell this colostrum, that milk produced at the early stage during this lactation period. They sell this in the market. There is a demand for that. And it is said that the athletes get very good stamina to perform in the competition wherever they participate because of these antibodies that are present in the colostrum of the colostrum or the breast milk produced by the initial stages of lactation, right? So this is with regard to this particular chapter, and I am going to stop the class today at this particular level, and in my next class, I am going to take up additional points pertaining to this human reproduction. Okay.